What's going on, everyone? Welcome back to another episode of the H Panel, the show where I bring on guests from all different backgrounds to talk all the things mental health. I'm your host, Harry Potvin, and today I have the pleasure of being joined by Danny Parrott. Danny is a herbalist, a juice mixologist, and the founder of the Parrott Food and Beverage Corporation. He specializes in adaptogen herbs and ways that we can consume them for our physical and mental benefits. Danny was so fun to talk to, and as a guy who knows absolutely nothing about herbs, this was a great episode for me as well. And I wanted to thank Danny again for coming on and having this discussion with me. Now, before we get started here, guys, first off, I hope you all had a great St. Paddy's Day. I know we couldn't get our shamrock on at the bars, but I hope what you did sufficed. And also, if you're watching this, please like, comment, share, subscribe, give 5 stars on podcast platforms, share with someone who might need to hear this episode. It's a really great one, and I can't wait for you to listen. I'll talk to you all very soon. Peace. I'm Harry Potvin, and this is the H Panel. And we're live. Danny, thank you so much for joining me today, man.
Hey, no problem, man. I appreciate you having me on.
So before we get into herbs, like I told you off camera, I'm not an expert here at all. What inspired you to get into herbalism, into that field of work?
Right. Well, I always wanted to be a helper of humanity. So I went to school for social work and psychology. But then family, friends, and family members started getting sick and going to the hospitals, and doctors didn't really have answers. So I always felt that there had to be a better way. I've heard about other better ways. And then once a best friend of mine, his father passed away, I was like, look, I'm just diving deep on what are the other options. And since I didn't really find anybody, at least that I knew that could provide me information, I just started studying from other experts in the field, other holistic modalities. And then I just kind of did experiments by myself to come to my own conclusions, and it's been uphill ever since. I'm blown away by the published data about these plants, and then the lack of knowledge of this published data of these plants. So I just took it by the horns and said, I'm gonna ride this thing all the way out and help as many people as I can.
Nice. So there's a lot of published articles on like herbalism then?
Right, on the specific herbs that I use, because herbalism in general, there's a lot of different ways you could break it down. For me, I'm a practitioner of herbalism. They have people that grow, they have people that study the chemistry of the plants, they have people writing the books. But for me, I like to take the herbs and apply them, and learn how they work real time. So that's how I get down, man. I feel like it's essential. Trial and error is the key to all innovation. So that's what I've been doing.
Well, yeah, and it's so important, right? Because a lot of us, like, we just take everything to heart, like everything that's written, everything that's put out there. We just take it so seriously without doing our own personal trial and error, which can be a mistake, right? Because we're all different. So if you just take one piece of evidence and say, oh, that'll work 100%, and then try it out, it might not work for you. So it's important to do that trial and error that you're doing.
Exactly. And that's essential. And when it comes to plants and herbs, I suggest people do that. There's no one size fits all plant, just like there's no one size fits all medication, and there's a big difference between herbs and drugs. And I think that's something that needs to be highlighted, because a lot of the people, they'll be using a medication and they say, oh, well, I don't want to use this medication anymore, so let me go use this herb instead. And then they'll swap out the pill for the plant. And that's not the appropriate approach, because you're still not really addressing what the issue is. You want to try to break down what's going wrong with your body, then use an herb that actually works for that body system. And then that's when the healing begins. Because just trying to use a herb to counteract symptoms, just like, maybe an aspirin, that's not really helping you in the long run. And that's it's the opposite approach. When we're looking at holistic, we want to fix the baseline problems, not put a Band-Aid on top.
Yeah, 100%. So when you've mentioned this on your page, this idea that people have, like, this question you keep getting, like, do herbs can herbs heal my or cure my illness? I think that's the word you target.
Yeah, that's definitely it.
Yeah. So what is the answer to that?
The answer is no. Like herbs don't cure diseases. And the reason why I say no, they don't cure diseases is because the definition of cure is not ours. It's not in the holistic realm. It's not for laymen's. That belongs specifically for doctors and the medical system. So that's their word. And anybody using any plants claiming to be curing things, they're violating a certain agreement or understanding. So I will always make sure that anybody that wants to dive into the herbs or myself when I'm communicating the benefits, because I know for the layman's, right? You would think I have type 2 diabetes, right? My blood sugar is consistently high, my A1C is consistently high, and I have been diagnosed with the disease. Now, any regular person, if your blood sugar numbers are down, your A1C is normal, and you no longer have the issues associated with diabetes type 2, you would say, oh, well, I did this and I cured myself of the disease. That's what a normal person would say. But in the medical system, you have not been cured. You've only halted the symptoms or put it potentially in remission, right? They use other words to counteract the idea that you actually rid yourself of an ailment. So I don't like to play the semantic game. Like we have to get away from it. That we're basically playing to their rules, and that's the wrong way when we're looking at as a regular person, a layman, looking at your body. You have a dysfunction. You want to help that dysfunction become functional as best as it can. It has nothing to do with curing or because the word cure assumes that you're broken and you can't be fixed,
Hmm.
right? You need something to come in and fix the broken piece. But most people their ailments, I think it's like 85% of ailments are self-inflicted or environmental or something like that. So you just fix those baseline causes and the issues kind of melt away, and I don't care if you have a disease title, because if you're not sick and if you're not in pain and if you don't have any symptoms, then it's kind of irrelevant.
Hmm. Yeah. So do you think that word cure is kind of what's holding people back from gaining this knowledge on herbs?
I think so. I think it's a major obstacle. I think it's actually a setup, a pitfall, a booby trap.
Mm.
Because any, like, for example, if you have success using herbs to help people recover and regain their health, and you have a lot of success, if that word cure is used in your explanation or by you in some way, you'll be targeted because you'll then be practicing medicine without a license, because only medical professionals can potentially cure diseases. So yeah, I think it's definitely it's a hurdle and a pitfall that I always want to make sure people kind of avoid. Just get rid of the word, retire it from our normal vocabulary because it doesn't serve us.
Hmm. I feel like it also sets up an unrealistic expectation for the benefits that herbs give.
Right.
It's like when it's like with antidepressants, going back to mental health, where like you just expect that happy pill to take everything away.
Right. That's exactly what it is. And those, oh man, those pills are hit or miss too.
Mm, yeah.
That, that's a whole nother realm of anger that hits me, because I think of, in my expertise, right? I'm an herbalist, but I have a specialty in a specific class of herbs called adaptogens. And like the word, the prefix of the word, adapt. These herbs help our bodies to adapt to our surroundings, to the environmental stressors, to the external stressors, to the way that we perceive stress in general. And then that, once you reduce your stress load, then it makes impact on your emotional health, and it makes a big impact on your decision making and your thought process every day. So just think about if your thought process is improved and your stress is reduced just by 5-10% every day, that builds up for you to think clearer, make better decisions, and obviously improve the way that you feel and the way that you interact with other people.
Hmm. So what kind of herbs are in that family of adaptogens?
We have a few. All right, and the ones that I work with the most, goji berry, a herb called jagulin, a herb called ashwagandha, which is probably one of the more famous ones. Chaga mushroom, reishi mushroom, American ginseng. There's astragalus root. So yeah, there's a few that I use in my different combination and blends that all have benefits to different areas of the body, but all reduce stress, improve immunity, and help with the energy levels of our cells.
So how do these specific ones target stress?
All right, so our stress response. The funny thing is they've done this experiment with a couple of different herbs, and the first ones that I've ever read were from Russia, right? And it's HPA axis, the hypothalamus pituitary adrenal gland axis. It's like hypothalamus is in our brain. Uh, Obviously, we observe something, whether that situation be dangerous to us or whatever. Our perception of that creates a cascade of communication and then releasing of hormones that goes down to our adrenal glands. And if we see that as a threat, then our adrenals produce a lot of cortisol, which leads to higher blood pressure, blood sugars, and all that. So that entire stress response is what is focused on by these herbs. And like I said, they did this. The first experiments were done in Russia, and I think it was I want to say the 40s, and they were using war prisoners. Right, what they did was they took 50 men that were war prisoners, and they had them in the coal mines, like breaking up rocks. Then they took another 50. One of them they gave to placebo. One they gave an adaptogen called eleuthero and rhodiola, and they used it for the 50%. They worked them to what they would call exhaustion. So if a Russian general is working war prisoners to exhaustion, you can assume what that means, right?
Mm.
So the 50 that took the herbs, they lasted. The other 50, they didn't make it. And that's how they made a determination on how, oh, these herbs actually do increase endurance. They do increase your ability to handle, withstand stress, help with your cells and how your muscles work, all your organs as well. So they've done, that was a real time, real human experiment that can't be refuted. I think those are the most powerful because clinical trials, there's a lot of controls put on the actual experiment itself. Life does not happen under control. So if anything that's under control, in my opinion, is automatically fundamentally flawed. So that's why, you use these plants, and like I said, the published data on a lot of them. The most I would say is ashwagandha, chaga mushroom, and reishi mushroom. Those three probably have the most published data as being ashwagandha is the best for emotional health issues, reduction of cortisol, anxiety, depression, mental health. That would be my go-to herb for emotional and mental health issues. Chaga mushroom also is beneficial for reducing your stress, but that has more of an effect on your overall immunity, and it has tons of minerals. This is one thing, kind of on a tangent, but using herbs, they actually contain all the individual vitamins that people are toting as beneficial. If you're talking about, everyone's talking about vitamin C and zinc and melatonin and all these other things, but imagine you can have all of those in one source. Like, why would you get the isolated versions when you can get it all naturally in an herb? So chaga is one of those that have tons of those minerals that we all know that are extremely beneficial. But yeah, back to reishi. Reishi is another one of the mushrooms with tons of their public data. Like they publish this stuff in other countries. They have small universities replicating what the other countries do. And at the end of everyone, the conclusion is always this: very promising for reduction of whatever they're testing. If it's inflammation in the brain for Alzheimer's, if it's reducing tumor sizes in metastatic cancer, if it's fighting COVID-19, even. We have this studies showing that these plants provide protection to humanity, and they always, it's like they beg for more funding and for more larger research. And when I'm reading this stuff. Everybody can read it. I'd be sharing the articles with with people, and it's like, all right, well, that's cool. Like, yo, you don't realize that all this money is being thrown around for research for pharmaceuticals, but we have scientists that are begging our organizations for health to give us money to expound on these. And we all know why that isn't happening. And I feel like it's like an elephant in the room that people just ignore. Like I've been using these plants for years, and I've seen the benefits in myself. And then I started using it with my family, and then I started using it with my friends, and I saw how beneficial it was in such a quick time that I decided to develop a product and give it to as many people as I could. And that has shown even more results. So it's like we have something that is an absolute viable option to keep us healthy and safe mentally, physically, and from different pathogens. And the list of pathogens are enormous, from Ebola to COVID to the flu to all kinds of things. And if there's any more like information you would like to find for yourself, I would suggest looking into the work of Paul Stamets, because he's a mycologist, studier of mushrooms, and this guy's far out. By the way, he's into the trippy stuff. Like
Mm.
he's one of those. He's a civilian scientist, but his work was so profound that the Department of Defense in America gave him like $2 million to develop a potential biological threat protection. Right. So what he did, he lives like in the west coast in the old growth forest. So there's mushrooms galore. So him and his team got all these different mushroom strands and started testing each mushroom constituent against these pathogens. They sent over the samples, and then, I'm sorry, he didn't receive the pathogens. The Department of Defense had all the viruses. He just sent the samples of each medicinal mushroom to see how it would affect those viruses and different pathogens. And they have shown immense benefit. Like it's published. This guy's sharing this information, and just people don't grasp that you can use these plants, specifically medicinal mushrooms, to fight or I want to say fight, to sustain your health in the face of multiple different issues that can come at you.
Yeah, I feel like when people hear medicinal mushrooms, they rope it in with psychedelic, which I think,
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know, but I feel like that might stop people from even giving it a piece of their time.
And yeah, that's one of the it's one of the dogmas that's kind of been carried over, but it's slowly starting to fall away. The psychedelic medicinal mushrooms, because there are also medicinal mushrooms that are psychedelic, and that has a profound benefit on our minds. So I think one of these doctors I was following, I forget his name off the top of my head, but he said the study of the psychedelic mushrooms, psilocybin is the active compound. The study of psilocybin will open up the realm of our minds, right? The science of our mind, just like the telescope opened the science of astronomy, just like the microscope opened the science of microbiology. So once we start to harness the power in a respectable and obviously a scientific way versus people going and eating their shrooms and going to a rave, then we can actually do some really profound work in the fields of psychiatry and emotional health in general. Like the benefits are amazing.
Yeah, I've heard that. I've heard like microdosing helps you focus and like get your head right, like eliminates brain fog, and uh, I've heard like there's a guy. I don't know if he's Canadian. Do you know Daniel Carcillo? He's like an ex hockey player, but he's all for like the psychedelic mushrooms because he said it helped him with like CTE.
Okay,
Mm-hmm.
that's big, and that's very true, man. I'm glad that more people are speaking out about it because using a microdose, it's not enough to really get you to make you see things or get trippy at all. This microdose is roughly about 1/10 of a gram, right? That's usually what they say. And it depends on the mushroom because it's different kinds. But using that, I I will tell you from experience, one, I don't do it often. I only do it if I really feel like I need to have a good day, because that's what they actually call it.
Mm.
In Silicon Valley, I think the coders and stuff, they use this stuff to get in the zone, creative thinking, more, figuring out problems. But everyone that takes it, they say after their microdose, they just had a good day. Like, you don't feel like, you're seeing the walls melt, or you're not feeling funny, but your day is focused. It kind of goes by quick. And I would say you feel accomplished at the end of the day. That's been my experience every single time I've done a microdose. But
Hmm.
yeah, they definitely, they has a lot of potential for benefit to a lot of people.
So is that pushback then just the dogma and like the stigma around the fact that if you use mushrooms you're like a hippie or like a you don't you're not very smart.
Yeah, it's all dogma, and it's all scienceless. It's based on nothing except the politicalization of movements. Like the hippie movement, they were a threat to national security because they were against war. They were for peace. These people were popping acid and eating mushrooms and feeling at one with each other. You know what I'm saying? At one with the world. And they felt like war is not the way. And it's very true. Like the idea of competition and trying to take over places and take over people and impede on their free will is just not the way that we can advance, safely into the future. Like that's just the but these guys using these mushrooms, they just intuitively fell into that position. And I forget what the leaders of the hippie times names, but they were like enemy number one of the country. So if they're taking mushrooms, then you got to demonize them, demonize whatever it is that's making them think the way that they're thinking, because it's un-American and it's dangerous. Right. So that's when the war on drugs kind of focus on them, and it's all been negative ideas from at least the generation before us, like our parents and even maybe some of our grandparents. They all just had that idea and passed it down to us, but it's completely baseless. And all the science right now showing that is extremely safe. I don't think there's any deaths recorded ever. It has almost literally no effect on your organ systems, as in like toxic effects. But obviously, there are dangers if you are mentally unstable. You have a diagnosis, you're on medications, you're drinking, whatever the case may be. You may have an experience if you take, a trippy dose that is very unfavorable. You can reach the darkness within inside your subconscious, and it could be too much for you. You may not be ready for that because your body and your mind wasn't ready in the first place. So, I mean, it has, like I said, everything has its risk, but the risks are not instant death. The risk isn't like a heart attack or kidney failure. The risk would be, maybe a bad trip. But every person I've ever heard of having bad trips, they're not long lasting as in like trauma, but they do remember it as in, damn, that was a really, really scary night terror while I was awake. And, usually teaches them something. And I think every person has something positive to say, even if they had a bad experience.
Hmm. Well, there's like bad cases and bad things for everything, really. It's all dependent on the person, right? So like this idea that mushrooms are evil and people who use them are demonized, like it, alcohol has way more negative effects than mushrooms. I mean, I'm not a
Exactly.
scientist, but I'm just from what I've
True.
heard. Yeah.
Hmm. Absolutely. That's exactly what we see. Like, we know people drunk driving. Like, I'm sure you know someone that's gotten into a car accident by a drunk driver. Like, this is so common, but it's accepted as normal and okay. But this is really killing people. And then you're gonna, on the other hand, you got stuff that's safe like cannabis and medicinal mushrooms, not killing people, but there's laws against it, and people still have these misguided ideas about them. But things are changing because information is being shared, just like these conversations that we're having, like sharing this information for other people. It kind of just turns on a light bulb and heads people, or at least I should say, guides people in the right direction, gives them some positions to jump into that they normally wouldn't have had access to before, and that just increases our common knowledge on the collective. That's the goal.
Mm-hmm. I wanted to ask you before we get into like the mental health benefits. I wanted to ask you about your case study where you used adaptogens to alleviate COVID's long term complications.
Right, we're doing
What did you get out of that?
we're still in it, and we're still looking for more willing individuals to take part. But so far, every person, they have experienced recovery within the longest was 2 to 3 days, and if they're sick for weeks on end, right, and they're going to the doctor in the hospitals and they're getting their vitals checked, and the doctors are sending them home saying, "Oh, you're okay. Like there's nothing wrong with you. Oh, it's just the long term COVID stuff." It's like, well, we can hope for the best, but we can't do nothing for you. And then imagine you going home after that, and then you have an excruciating headache, or you got this fatigue that doesn't even allow you to get out of bed, or you have these weird pains in your shoulder and extremities that have no explanation, or your tightness in your chest. You think you're having a heart attack. Like, I mean, the stories that I've heard are pretty scary. To think that you're not sick, but you're sick as a dog. Like, so I wanted to make sure that there was something that we could do, because my theory was, well, I mean, I don't even know if it's theory at this point. I'm pretty sure it's a fact based on a lot of other scientists and doctors explaining that the effects of COVID is systemic inflammation, and systemic inflammation is just like code word for damage to every part of your body. So it's like you have your lungs, your pulmonary system, your blood vessels, which is one of the main ones. Because I'm in contact with a lot of people that are in the hospital, so I can get both sides of what's actually happening. Because being a herbalist, I am outside of the medical system. I am a layman. I am a person like you and I. We discuss things and have ideas, but I love to get the opinion of people that are actually working in the hospitals to see exactly what's happening, what they're seeing. And they've told me that, that it's like blood clotting, and they can't breathe, and all kinds of things that just don't really make sense. So my opinion, based on reading the benefits of these herbs and then using them for other issues that are associated with the body systems that are wrong for each person, I always ask, we have a little a sheet, a wellness questionnaire that we ask the people, what are you experiencing? Because somebody with long haul COVID can have completely different symptoms than another person with long haul COVID. So we get the idea of what's going wrong, what part of the body that is associated with, and then we make a suggestion on the herbs that they can use. And so far, it's I've only had to use two combinations because usually they touch on all the body systems, and so far is everyone is recovered. Everybody's recovered. I don't even know it's 100% effective. Like like that's it sounds crazy, but it's as true as it gets. And a lot of people don't want to believe things that are too good to be true, that are too simple. They have it's an immediate, like, a cognitive dissonance. Like, this can't be that can't be right. You can't just use a couple of herbs and make your body feel well when all the doctors can't figure it out. How can that be? Once you get over that step, that hurdle, like, yeah, you know what, this is a possibility. Once you jump into the possibility realm, then you actually experience it and see it, and these herbs, they are very beneficial for people that have long haul COVID, for people that have acute respiratory illnesses, people that have, they're trying to avoid getting sick altogether. Any stage, these herbs have benefit for, and because they help the body recover. And it's not fighting the COVID virus. This is assisting the body assimilate to negative whatever it is, because I'm not even sure. Honestly, I'm pretty sure that this is not caused specifically by a virus. It's something else, and it's a lot of issues with our body, and that's a whole nother video. But yeah, using these plants help our body to recover and just be at its best version, and that's the key here. So if you're not sick, right? I hate the idea of people thinking that if you're not sick, you can make other people sick. Like that just doesn't make sense. And that was something that was fed to us since the beginning. And I cannot disagree with that sentiment anymore. If you're not sick, if everybody in the world remained asymptomatic, then there is no problem. You get what I'm saying? Like the only problem is you being sick. So if you can, my goal in the beginning was like, look, I'm just gonna make sure everyone's asymptomatic. You're like, all right, you don't have no symptoms, so it don't matter if you got a positive test. You're not sick. You know, that's the key here. Just making sure that people are feeling good and feeling well.
Hmm. So what you're saying, I'm just trying to make sure I get it right. So you're saying that if you're asymptomatic, you can't get other people sick? Is that what you're trying to say?
That yeah, that I mean, in as simple terms, right? In simple terms, if you're not sick, and sickness means I feel like crap. I'm coughing. I'm sneezing. I feel feverish. Whatever. Like when somebody I feel sick. Like just try to keep it as simple as possible. And if you don't feel sick, that is being asymptomatic. If you're not sick, you're not doing the things that spread a sickness. You're not
Mm.
coughing, sneezing. It's like the idea that you can make someone sick that you're not sick. I don't think that is I think that's one of the biggest reasons for the fear and for the shutdowns and for the opposite effect of the nocebo. Are you familiar with the term placebo?
Yep.
Placebo, the nocebo effect has had a tremendous impact on our overall health. Like if you just think about it, if you believe that anywhere that you can go, somebody can make you sick, and even if they're not sick, then in the back of your head, you already have the idea that you're gonna get sick. And that has a terrible impact on our psyche, on our morale, and on our immune system. So I think that's one of the biggest issues that we face now. And even the World Health Organization, they've openly said that asymptomatic spread is very, very rare, if at all.
And we just choose to ignore that statement from the World Health Organization.
Yeah, and we've ignored the statement because the fear has already set in. They started saying that after everyone was terrified.
Mm.
So at this point, they're changing the story so many times. You all like if you imagine just this information overload, you can only grasp for so much. And the human mind usually pays attention to the most traumatic thing or the most dramatic thing. And if you can get sick and die from a person that is not sick, that is very dramatic. You know what I'm saying? So that is what stuck in people's heads. And still to this day, I can show individuals like, look, this is the World Health Organization. This is the article. This is the head. This is what the guy said. It's like you don't get sick. Asymptomatic spread is very rare and possibly null, but it don't matter because it's already stuck. The idea already stuck in their head.
Hmm. Yeah, it's a big problem, man. I'm worried for like if we get back to outside, like we get back to normal, like everyone's gonna be afraid of each other because that's kind of
Right.
what it like. We've been pummeled with this idea to stay 6 feet apart, to wear the masks, to stop the spread, don't touch people, and we're gonna get back into the real world, and people are not gonna want to be social. They're not gonna want to interact with people or get too close. But in our biological like what's the word here? In our biological mold, we're meant to be social. We're meant to be with people. We're meant to communicate. Like that's just how our biological mold is. And then we're gonna get out there and we're gonna go against everything that we were built and evolved to do.
Exactly. And that is, I mean, it's happening right now. And I'm hoping that individuals recognize the value of being a community. This is something that's not really optional for our overall well-being. If we are isolated, there's many studies. In my psych courses, I've studied this many times. When you isolate a person, you create a rip in their identity. You hurt them in the core of their being because you're taking them away from others and love and the connection in which we need to have. And it's a very similar situation to cancer in itself. Cancers, they grow and divide based on their isolation. They are the void of nutrient. They are damaged, and they don't have adequate blood flow. They don't have adequate energy flow. They're isolated and not receiving what they need to thrive. And that's happening to people. So if that happens to individual cells, what makes them go cancerous, that's going to be happening to people right now. We can actually see it because all the rates, suicide rates are up. Domestic violence rates are up. All these crimes are on the rise because we've been disconnected from each other. The love has been zapped out of the world almost. We returning it back. Individuals like us speaking, like from New York to damn Canada. We bringing this love back because it's really, really important to let people know that connection is essential for human thrive.
Yeah, 100%. So your case study, did you select people from varying ages, or was it like a specific age group that you picked?
Everybody. There was no. I didn't put a cap on who can get involved because this is more of philanthropy because I have a charity called Max Philanthropies. So I wanted to do something good for people that don't have any answers. So that was the first idea about going about it. It's like, look, I got to make sure I'm helping some people. And then I thought, like, well, if I'm going to help these people, let me document it and advance science at the same time. So that was the main goal, helping as many people as possible, and then using the scientific method to show that this is very viable, very effective, very affordable, very available. So we can help people if they're sick, we can help them with herbs. If they are worried about getting sick, we can help them with herbs. Got that was it.
So have you received any pushback from this? Because I feel like when we're talking about COVID, there's such like a dark cloud over it now. Like if you come up with a solution that isn't like the vaccine or staying indoors, people just assume you're nuts.
You know what? I've had a little bit of pushback, but not really. I've seen, at least through my social media platforms, the majority of people are open to learn and to absorb this information and to look for other options. And you got the occasional troll here and there that will come in and just say, "Oh, this is BS," and just completely, they got no picture on their name. They just they got no posts. They just commenting negative, regurgitated information from the news channels. So outside of that, there is no pushback from a reliable source at all. Everyone is just conjecture and repeating fear-based information, but the reality is the reality. You can't use your political opinion to determine science. I'm using the scientific method. I'm being as open and transparent about this as you can possibly get. And people are sharing their story. I'm not just making the stuff up. I asked them what they're experiencing. They reported back, and that's as simple as it gets. So, anybody that has any negative thing to say, they can kiss my behind because I really don't. I don't care. Their opinion is irrelevant when it comes to facts.
Well, and it's usually those people, like you said, like the little trolls that are all over the internet. They have no posts, they have no followers, they just
Right.
no profile picture. They're just out there spewing hate.
Hmm.
It's hard, man. It the problem now, and I don't like identifying problems all the time because I do like spreading positivity. But one of the issues with being on social media all the time now, like in the pandemic, it's like the only way for a lot of us to communicate you forget who's a troll and who isn't, and like what to take to heart and what not to. Like
Right.
like these trolls come in and they say like, "Hey, f you, like you're a piece of garbage. Everything you're saying is wrong." And you almost forget that that's definitely like a 13-year-old in his grandma's basement, like who has no life, just writing that, and you take it to heart. It's hard to distinguish.
Right. I mean, I would say the same thing. And I actually took a position to where I enjoy my trolls, right? And I would do my best to kind of fit myself into their troll little mind and try to explain things so that they would explain or they would understand, or ask them questions in which they would have to self-evaluate their position. And I've done that. I would say I'm about 75% effective at redirecting trolls, right? Um, but still, it always it sits in, at least for me, it sits in the back of my head as in, damn, like I couldn't help this guy. He's just lost. And that's just, I guess, the social worker in me. Like, I want to, if you don't have the knowledge to recognize something very beneficial in front of your head, I would at least want to help you try to mold your vision. Try to mold your opinion to the opportunities, potentials. Instead of being so stringent and rock headed, you should look at other potentials and see if this is possible. That's all.
Yeah, I think even deep down, all those people are just looking for answers. I think that's the
And that's exactly, yeah.
yeah. I think that's just the communal mindset right now. We just want to go back to partying and being with friends and everything. We're looking for every answer possible. Just different ways of expressing that, I guess.
Right.
So yeah. So I wanted to get into the mental benefits of the herbs that you use. So is it like a different group of herbs, or do adaptogens also improve mental health?
Right. The adaptogens do have a benefit. All of them, all the adaptogens have a benefit on our stress. So I think mental health always boils down to, your environment, and then obviously, the chemistry inside you. So you got the external things that you really can't control, and then, happenings, your significant other has an attitude or whatever. You can't really control that. But then obviously you got the things that you're putting inside your body. Those play a role big time. What you're drinking, what you're eating, what you're seeing, what you're listening to. That has a big role on how your body is going to behave and how your mind is going to interpret the world. So I always see that a reduction in stress has a benefit on all mental health issues. Like, if you're not under that pressure, you're not pacing around, you don't have the cloudiness in your mind, you feel better. And that's really the key. And some of the herbs have more benefits than the others when it comes to our mental health. Um, like I said, ashwagandha and reishi, those two probably have the most information published on how beneficial they are to mental health issues. Lion's mane also. Sorry, I can't believe I forgot about that one. You can't forget about lion's mane, because that helps with the regeneration and regrowth of nerve cells. So I know there's this pervading idea that once your brain cells die, it's over. And that's not true. They can regrow and regenerate just like everything else in our body. And lion's mane helps facilitate that process with, some biochemistry stuff. But there's a lot of molecules inside the lion's mane that help the growth and repair of the nervous system, the brain tissue, and this thing around our nerves called the myelin sheath, which increases the efficiency in which electricity and messages can pass through our mind.
Hmm. So yeah. Wait. What was my question there? I forget what my question was. So
Adaptogens on mental health. So yeah, it was ashwagandha, reishi, and lion's mane. I would say those are probably the top three.
mhm.
But all the adaptogens have some benefit to our mental health.
So why don't a lot of people accept the fact that these herbs can improve mental health? Is that just going straight back to the dogma effect?
No, I think this one they just don't know.
Mm,
Yeah, people just don't know at all. They don't realize that there is a potential, and that's the vast majority. And then there is a very small percentage of people that they will say that they've tried it and it doesn't work, and that's definitely understandable if they've used something and they have not experienced benefit from it. But I always caution individuals to realize that not all herbs are the same. You can go and buy ashwagandha tablets off Amazon, that's not going to be the same, nearly as close as the ashwagandha extracts that we make. You know what I mean? It's you're not getting high quality herbs. So if you're not getting high quality herbs, then you can have a herb and not experience the improvement. And I know that's happened to a few people. And I always say you get what you pay for. If you got a low quality product, you might not have gotten the results that you were expecting based on information that you may receive from me or another herbalist, or even looking at PubMed or NIH, or these clinical trials. If they're showing the benefit, but you didn't experience the benefit, you got to probably try again and find a higher quality source.
hmm it goes back to our comparison with antidepressants, right? Like not every single one is going to work for you. So you can't just try one, have it not work, and then throw out the towel. Like I'm not saying that antidepressants are the answer. I'm just saying if you're like looking for that, because that happened to me where like I took one and my body reacted extremely negatively to it, and
Mm.
I for a while I was just like, well, it's supposed to work, so I'm just gonna stay on it. And then when my doctor took me off it and put me on another one, it worked way better. So it's the trial and error that we were talking about before.
Right. Mm. Yeah, those. I think there's something that needs to be highlighted about the consistency as well. Like I've noticed that people don't like. I'm not making a comparison between medications and herbs. However, if you receive a prescription medication from your psychiatrist or your physician, you get it in a bottle, you're going to take it every day. You're not going to relax. But if you purchase an herbal supplement, you might put it in the cabinet and take it when you remember to take it. So it's the consistency and use over time. And I know that's the case with several different psychiatric drugs. I know some of them they kick in like 6 weeks later or something like that, and they start to make alterations. I think if you give a herb like ashwagandha or reishi 6 weeks of use every single day, you will definitely notice a benefit. And I would say that goes on for anxiety, that goes on for depression, a lot of different actions, and it's kind of twofold. One, you have consumed something that calms your stress. That's always the key. But the second, and I think probably the most important aspect is you have psychologically told yourself you're going to fix your problem and you're going to use something. So the action of I'm going to get myself better, the thought of it helps facilitate that process. And then you use the herb, and then it has a twofold effect. So they're bringing in the recovery and healing time from both ends. Because I know one of the biggest obstacles for mental health is the lack of will. It's like, you get into a funk or depression, you don't have the desire to get out of bed. Even though you might know, it's like, I need to go outside today and get some sunlight and walk. Just the desire is not there. So I think using a herbal product, you can kind of coax yourself. Like it's really not hard to, maybe take a foot out of the blanket, walk over and take some herbs. To drink yourself a shot of elixir, which is my product where I use drinks and herbs and blend them together. And you do that. That whole action itself is therapeutic, and it starts to help bring you out of the funk itself because of the action. And then once you add in the chemistry from the plants, it's multiple levels of benefit.
Yeah, it's all the baby steps, right? We often we get in our way too much for things like this.
Big time.
Yeah, we're like our own obstacle.
Hmm.
So can people is there a way that people can start, let's say they're open to change and they're open to using herbs for their mental benefit. Is there a place for them to start?
To start, I would, yeah, there's many places. That's the key. And but it always begins with understanding what you're getting yourself into. Like, you want to look at herbs. I try to make it as simple as possible. I try to talk to people as laymen with no medical terms and no complex explanations. But using these herbs, try to get yourself a high quality adaptogen. Is it a tincture form? I think those are the best. Um, I like blending them with juices. I think those are the very best because you're having something that tastes good. There's a barrier between most people and their tongue and then what's good for them. So if you take a bitter and you don't like it, you're not going to be consistent with it. But if you take something that actually tastes good, you drink it, you absorb it, your body feels a little bit better, or it starts to put the pieces together for you to feel better, then that's the first step. Looking for an herb, doing some research on it, because the idea of going out and reading it yourself versus hearing it from me, it's stronger. It gives you that understanding. You weren't told, you read it, and you grasped knowledge, because and then you can go from different sources, different sites. That's all the information is there. It's the beauty of the internet, at least for now. Like they're not censoring herbal knowledge. That's it's a great benefit for us. We have that opportunity right here just to learn. And learning it is the first step, then using it, and then people will start to feel a lot better.
Hmm. I hope they don't censor it, man. That'd be terrible.
Yeah, it would be. And at least I would say what they're doing now. I have a partner slash mentor slash my guy when it comes to herbs and his extraction processes. 'Cause, he's doing everything that he can. His name is Jason Duke. He's doing everything that he can on the internet side to clear the web of all the misinformation of herbs. Like he's scouring Google articles and he's working with Google professionals to start to flag sites like WebMD, right? If you
Mm,
go and you put in one of the herbs that I mentioned, right, WebMD will pop up. They have no right to pop up. This is not a drug. You know what I'm saying? This is not a pharmaceutical medication. So they'll come up and then they'll give their explanation on what the herb is, and then they'll tell you all the potential risks that there are that they just completely made up. And then they'll tell you that it is potentially unsafe, right? And once you put this shell of doubt on somebody, then they start to kind of draw back. So I think that's one of the biggest things, that it should be censored. WebMD has no business talking about things that they don't understand. Like I can't put up on my website drug information because I don't know that stuff. So these physicians, unless they're a holistic or Ayurvedic or Eastern philosophy physician, then they don't really have a leg to stand on to explain what these herbs are good for and what they're not good for.
man, once you put potentially unsafe on anything, it's a wrap. But can't anything be labeled potentially unsafe?
Yeah, just go in your pool, drink some water. Like this water potentially unsafe. If I put my head in it too long, I'm dead. You know what I'm saying? Like you can't. You just potentially unsafe. You put that on anything, it terrifies people,
Hmm.
and it's wrong. They're not putting that on the things that it needs to be. They're putting that on the vaccine, but potentially unsafe on the vaccine and see what happens.
Yeah, no, yeah, we all, yeah. Good luck getting people to take it. So, are there any like at home remedies that people can try? Let's say they don't have like the resources to go out and get like products that you offer. So, is there any way they can do that at home?
There's tons of herbs, and there's really, really beneficial herbs. Ginger should be almost in everybody's herbal closet if they want to use something daily. ginger is probably pound for pound the most cost effective and most beneficial. So having ginger on deck is really, really good. Nettle leaf is very available, very cheap. I think that should be drank as a tea daily. Um, there are a few actually. Like most of the herbs and spices in your cupboard, they have some benefit. And if you have a green thumb and you can grow some things, you can make a lot of things really beneficial. I know there's a basil is a good one, but there's a herb called holy basil, which is a little bit different, but that's an adaptogen that we can grow and use. Using holy basil daily is really beneficial as well. But I mean, I could talk to you of different herbs for 2 hours alone because there's hundreds of thousands of different ones. And people, this like I took a focus on adaptogens because I knew that my life was limited. I wouldn't be able to get to all the herbs in this lifetime. So I just said, let me find the best of the best with the most overall benefit to the most amount of people and focus on those herbs and see how we can extrapolate them and help more people understand that their value and incorporate them into their lives.
Mm-hmm. What I love about these is that it's so accessible through the internet, and it's so, like you just said, there's so many in your own cupboard that you can use. So it's like there's like it makes people. I hope that when people listen, it makes them hopeful. Like let's say they feel a little lost with solutions to illness or mental health issues. Like it gives them a bit of hope that it's so easily accessible when they can't access the resources that a lot of us can.
Right. And I you know what? I always in the back of my head, I'm looking for someone to ask the question, right? And the question is, of all the people that have been hospitalized or have lost their life, how many of them were drinking some herbal tea with honey and lemon? How many of them had that, kind of incorporated into their lifestyle? Because I can tell, like, at least every single person that I know that drinks some type of herbal tea daily, they haven't passed away from this. And they're usually in pretty good health. So I know for sure that the adaptogens have that it's game over. They can ward off damn near any pathogen. But even the basic herbs like ginger, honey, and lemon, and anise, the basic stuff that people usually have in their cupboard, that is a very powerful tool for them to use. And I think it needs to be highlighted that you can use some basic simple herbs daily in a tea, and you can really improve your chances of regaining and sustaining health. But if you have, a lot of people have other issues, and if you have other issues that have susceptibilities in certain organ systems, then you might need to get some more exotic herbs. And that's where I come in, as a specialist in these specific herbs, and I can help with that way.
Love it. Where can my viewers find you if they need that more specialized research?
Well, on Instagram, you can find me at the People's Herbalist. The business page is Movers Elixirs. The web store that we got is moverselixirs.com. And then the corporation page is parrottbeverages.com. And that's Parrott with 2 T's, PARROTT, beverages.com.
Love it, man. And with that, we are done the episode. Danny, thank you so much for coming on, man. I really appreciate it.
Yo, man, I appreciate you having me, man. Thank you. Can't wait to do it again sometime.
Absolutely. We can do that 2-hour talk on herbs at some point. I got all the time. I got all the time in the world. And to all my viewers, I will see you guys next time.
Yes.
Hey guys, thanks for watching another episode of my show. If you want more episodes of the H Panel, the button's going to be right here. If you want to subscribe for more videos from myself, it'll be right down below. Please like, comment, share, give 5 stars. Let's keep this conversation going, guys, all right? I'll see you next time. Thank you for your support.